Saturday is going to be a very big day for the club. We play our 5,000th league fixture, become part of a select band of just 5 clubs. What does that sort of say about the history of the club? Been around a long time, of course, but a big day?
It's a relatively big day, yeah, because obviously it's another box ticked in our history. You know, I suppose when you think back 1888, the very first league game, you know, you'd have thought that, you know, not just the club but the game in general, that we'd be playing 5,000 league games. If you think back to that very first game, you know, against Derby County, who are one of the other teams that have played 5,000, you know, to go 3-0 up and then lose 6-3, you know, it's some people say it's a typical Bolton Wanderers thing through the years, but yeah, it's a milestone, and I think it falls in line really with what we've got this season in terms of more relative history. 25 years at the stadium, centenary of winning the first FA Cup final at Wembley, so it's just another piece in the jigsaw for Bolton Wanderers that says, hey, you know, we might not have a league championship on the table, but we've got good cup history, and here we are, we've played 5,000 league games. Of course, I think this part of you thinks maybe we might have been a little bit happier if we'd not played 5,000 league games, because obviously it meant we'd have been stayed in the Premier League longer and played less games, but hey, we are where we are.
Of course, as you say, it doesn't mean we've been around longer than anybody else,
no.
Obviously one of the founder members, but as you say, it's 5,000 league games, not cup ties, not playoff games.
Yeah.
And they say Premier League's clubs have played a few, but that's what it is, isn't it? 5,000 football league games.
League games, yeah.
Yeah, and of course we were one of the founder members in 1888. Just a bit of history before that. We'd been formed about a decade before that. What did we do before that? What was football before that?
The majority of games were just friendlies, but we played, you know, we played Celtic, we played Rangers, we played the Scottish and Irish teams were very popular, and they tended to be played over the holiday period, whether it be Christmas or Easter, and they drew quite big crowds. Because a lot of our players as well, I suppose the analogy is you could compare it with when we first started bringing overseas players in, and we had a team full of overseas players from all over Europe, all over the world. Well, back then, if we had not only English players, we had Scottish and Irish players, and they were the equivalent of the time of the Africans and the Europeans that we had in more recent history. Of course, we were in the FA Cup, we entered the FA Cup. But once the league started, the FA Cup sort of dwindled a little bit. The reserves played a couple of games in the FA Cup because it was more important. And as times marched on, of course, the FA Cup got bigger and bigger and bigger for Bolton Wanderers. And now the competition, really, certainly for the larger clubs, sort of turned yet again. You know.
So the Football League, 12 founder members. We were becoming the 5th club after Derby, you mentioned there, Preston North End and Burnley, our neighbours, and Wolves were the other one. And I mean, all great names, of course, from football's illustrious past, and hopefully great names of the future as well. But he said there had to be a certain reason there because of the Football League games. But that's pretty good company to be in, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, like you say, all founder members. You know, it'd be nice to jump in a time machine, wouldn't it, and turn up for that very first game. You know, I mean, the contrast between then and today is, you know, even when you look back at some of the videos that you see from the 20s and 30s, you know, a totally different world that we live in now compared to back then. The game was different, you know, much more physical, you know, much more akin, not to rugby, but, you know, you could get away with a lot more than what you can now. And let's be honest, even in the 60s and 70s. You know, you see some of the old games there now that we played, and you know, on the pitches that we played on, and nowadays people would turn their nose up at it. Rightly so, it's a different game.
The club history, we've got sort of several chunks of history, but two grounds, of course. And obviously, as you alluded to before, 25 years in this stadium, so we're racking up the games in this one, but obviously the majority were played at Burnden Park, and again a rich history back there, and I suppose it's just another chapter, isn't it, coming here?
It is. I'm just going to correct you a little bit there, because obviously we had a ground before Burnden Park at Pikes Lane. Again, we didn't play too many games there, but so we've been through this before. Obviously there's nobody around to witnessed it, from Pikes Lane to Burnden Park. And then first league game at Burnden was against Everton. The first game here was against Everton, which obviously many people remember for the obvious reasons of the goal that was never given. And the 25 years here have just flown, you know, and you think of the league games, and of course whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, we've played in every league in the stadium, you know, all 4 divisions. Again, you know, part of you thinks, well, I wish we'd have stayed in the top league, but that's football.
I'm just going to perhaps ask you an unfair question. Of all the clubs in that list, I certainly know that 4 of us have been in all the divisions. Have Derby been in the bottom division?
Top of my head, I don't think they have.
No, I think they'd be the one that haven't.
Just the 3. I don't think they've been in the 4th or League 2.
But obviously Burnley, Wolves and Preston, we share that similar history. And of course, in more recent times, we might not have made 5,000 games. Everybody knows the problems this club went through 3 years ago. So again, I suppose that's testimony that we've come through that and we've got the 5,000th to look forward to and a bright future.
Yeah, and I think you look at some of those teams as well. I mean, they've gone through similar things. You know, Wolves did. Derby have done more recently than we have. So I think through football and through history, all clubs seem to have had, and it all seems to be more recent, gone through financial difficulties, and it's off the park things that have really overtaken what's gone on in the park, and hopefully now the focus is what's happening on the field rather than off it.
That has thrown up an interesting little anomaly, though, because this is our 5,000th league game, and in the record, sort of, there was a 5,000 in the first, because again we didn't play and it went down with a score. But just tell us that.
That was the game against Brentford, where unfortunately the players decided that they weren't going to partake in that game because obviously they'd not been paid, and the owner of the time, decided he wasn't going to pay them, and the league decided in their wisdom that it would go down as a 1-0 win for Brentford. So that's what's in the record books, that's what went in the league table, but the game wasn't played. And the game was pulled on the Friday evening, the Saturday, for the game that was going to take place here. So there's a programme for that game, and everything was all set up for, like you would do on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And it was weird that, that game just didn't take place. I mean, fortunately, there was one more game left after that at Nottingham Forest, which we did partake in. They decided that the players decided they would play, and we finished the season down there. And then obviously the rest is history as to what happened off the park before we started moving forward again. So
it will be the 5,000th league game we've played at Peterborough on Saturday. It's a shame in some respects it's away from home, but you can't you can't work these things out, and we'll go to London Road, and I know the Football League are going to make a presentation and mark it accordingly. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's another milestone. And let's hope we wrap it up with a positive result.
Yeah, and hopefully plenty more to come. There's a lot to look forward to the rest of this season, and who knows what's coming in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
And you haven't seen all those 5,000 games, Simon, but you've seen a lot of
well, I had a little bit of her when I first started. You know.
Can you remember what you're up to? I'm sure you're not. I mean, you've seen.
A
lot of those.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, many league games. Yeah, all of them practically. I think since 1981. Yeah. League games.
Yeah. So you've seen it all, but you'll go on Saturday as a supporter and still an ambassador, and a representative of the club, and you stand there with a little bit of pride and say, I mean, you look through the history and where we've been and where we hope to get back to, and we're on everything's positive around the club at the moment, and long may it continue now. We're on this track now that. The supporters are on board with everything, and there's a lot of positivity around the place. Yeah, not fair to compare teams because you've seen some great teams, top end of the Premier League, but we've got a good side together, and as you say, it feels like we're going places again, doesn't it?
Yeah, the people we've got within the club now, from the owners, the team, the manager, everything is going in the right direction. And I think throughout the history of the club, you get a feeling when things are, somebody's just lit the touch paper and it's now starting to go, and I get that feeling again that we're moving, even if it's not as fast a pace as you want to be, because of course you like to move through divisions as quick as possible, but sometimes it can be to the detriment because you reach a ceiling and before you know it, you're falling through it again. So slowly, let's keep moving in the right direction and hope it's not too long before we're back to where we want to belong.
Exactly, and let's enjoy the 5,000th and mark it as it should be. It's a great achievement.
Yeah, certainly is.